Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on our webinar. Apologize for a couple of minutes delay, but we're happy to have you all join us here today for our webinar focused on career and technical education. All right. So I really encourage you all to submit your questions in our chat box or our Q&A feature here. And then, of course, if you have something that you're learning and want to share on social media, please feel free to do so as well. This webinar is being recorded and all materials will be available within a week of this recording. So I know we may have quite a few listeners that are new to FCAN's work. And so to give you a little background on who we are, our mission is to lead the collaborative movement to ensure that every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. Our vision is to see a Florida working together, where education is the pathway to economic mobility for all. The Florida College Access Network partners with communities and leaders to ensure that more students can achieve an education beyond high school, thus paving the path to prosperity for Florida families and our state. And so we do our work in these 6 ways here, where we try to release research and data policies that will provide opportunities to strengthen our talent pool through advocacy and storytelling, through the work of our local college access networks, through statewide initiatives, and convenings for collaboration like this one here today. We do our work also through these 7 conditions for success, which are listed here and you can find out more about on our website. And so to kind of shift gears into today's topic for our webinar, we are focusing on career and technical education, especially with this month being CTE month. And so at FCAN, this is how we define CTE. Of course, this is a very broad definition. A lot encompasses this educational pathway. And so this might not capture everything, but this is what we feel is best to represent this broad term. Still captures somewhat the broad nature of this educational pathway, combining both the academic and technical learning that is available for students, and then emphasizes the connection on the credential earned to their career later on in the workforce. And before we get started with our guest speakers, quickly also wanted to touch on some work that FCAN has done around CTE to degree advocacy. So something that will be covered during our time together today is articulation agreements and stackable credentials. Expanding our current CTE system for CTE to degree pathway mobility is something that we've continued to advocate for here at FCAN. We want to ensure that students can access seamless transfer pathways to allow them to transition their CTE credits to the college system if they so wish. Pathways are essential because without them, transferring schools can get complicated. Students can also benefit from more options that are available to them, and these pathways support non-traditional student populations as well. And I'll just leave us with this. Recently, last year, the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability, or OPAGA, did release a report stating that only 5% of students who went on to enroll into their second credential program, so the program that they have decided to articulate up to, completed it, showing that students who go through these pathways do need additional supports to successfully do so. And now onto our presenters. So first we have Lee Chips Walton, who serves as the Division of Career and Adult Education's Director of the Office of Career and Technical Education. He earned a Master of Science teaching from the Florida State University and holds a project management professional certification. Lee was raised by 2 public school educators and finds significant fulfillment in helping students achieve better careers faster. Next, we have Dr. Jackie Skird, who is Vice President of Workforce Development and Corporate Partnerships at St. Petersburg College. She supports college-wide operations and strategic initiatives at a complex institution with more than 37,000 students and 12 learning sites. She has served the public sector for more than 20 years and plays a key leadership role in the collective impact work that is transforming education across Tampa Bay. Jackie serves on the boards of St. Petersburg Innovation District, St. Petersburg Economic Development Council, Leadership Tampa Bay Foundation, and is a member of LEAP Tampa Bay's Leadership Council and Guiding Team. She earned her Doctor of Business Administration from the University of South Florida and her Bachelor's in International Studies from the University of Michigan. And lastly, we have John Monda, who is working through some technical difficulties right now, but hopefully will be able to join us towards the end, who is a recognized leader in workforce education in the state of Florida and is currently serving as the director of Lorenzo Walker Technical College. As the director of Lorenzo Walker Technical College, he recruits and trains faculty and staff to help students develop the basic employability and technical skills needed to enter and transform the local workforce in Southwest Florida. John also serves as the president of the Florida Association for Career and Technical Education. He holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy, master's degree in exceptional student education, and a specialist degree in educational leadership and supervision. He hopes to obtain his doctoral degree in workforce education and development. And now I will turn it over to Lee.
Thank you very much, Deborah. I am extremely excited to be with you all this afternoon. Again, my name is Lee Chips Walton. I work for the Florida Department of Education, the Division of Career and Adult Education, and help lead the Office of Career and Technical Education. And on the next slide, we'll see a little bit of our agenda together this afternoon. So it's up to me to give some highlights on the Florida's Career and Technical Education system here in Florida. And on the title of this of my section on the first slide is that CTE is Florida's career readiness engine. And so we're going to pop the hood and we're going to look at some of the main mechanics of the CTE system here in Florida. And then we're going to hear about some of the specific programs at specific technical and state colleges here in Florida. We'll hear from Jackie Scrid at St. Petersburg College next, and then John Monda from Lorenzo Walker Technical College as well. Colleagues that I highly respect and look forward to hearing a little bit more about their programs later today. So let's start with the end. What are we trying to accomplish with career and technical education? We want better careers faster for our students here in Florida. What does that mean? What does that look like? Better careers, we're saying, are those that are in growing industries that are hiring. They're in demand, to use a labor market term. They afford family-sustaining wages, and they offer advancement opportunities where you can continue to progress and have lifelong learning along a career pathway. And of course, they are chosen based on the student's own informed choice. Their interests, their skills, and their values are all going into making a fully informed decision about what career is right for them here in Florida. And faster means that students start to explore, plan, and prepare for careers very early, even in elementary school, where they are setting that foundation of career literacy. Building on that in middle school, where they're starting for the first time their personalized career and academic plan, something that is required in state statute. And then at high school, they're exploring different career pathways through CTE programs here in Florida. And those result in an industry-recognized stackable credential. Industry-recognized means that businesses here in Florida are looking for those credentials because those are represent the skills that they need to be fully productive. And then stackable means that when you complete those credentials, they're recognized by the next step up in that credential pathway. And we'll give some examples of that a little bit later on. Faster also means offering accelerated credit opportunities and graduation pathways. It means building skills like employability, technical, and career navigation skills. We'll talk a little bit more about what those categories mean in a second. And that the CTE programs offer opportunities for students to build social capital, to connect with individuals within industry that can help open doors for them. They can see themselves in these positions, different occupations, and they can build that network because, of course, it's not just what you know, but it is also who you know that can lead to a successful career. And there's significant evidence to support. I've linked here on the screen. You can, once you receive the PDF of this, you can click on that and be able to see some of the evidence aggregated by the Federal Department of Education that shows that students that have had multiple CTE courses are more likely to graduate high school. They're more likely to go on to post-secondary. They're more likely to be employed, and they're more likely to have a higher starting salary. All the kind of things that we are looking for the future of our students. Over the next couple slides, I'm going to start to talk about the system aspects of CTE here in Florida before we move into some of the specific examples. So again, at a systems level, we're talking about an educational progression here that really starts in middle school in earnest, where students are required by state statute to complete career and education planning courses where they develop a personalized career and academic plan, and they learn about the opportunities in high school such as work-based learning opportunities and career and technical education programs that they can enroll in, and the associated academics that might align with those different program areas. In high school, of course, they can take a wide variety of different career and technical education programs. I think on the next slide, we'll see just the breadth of the different CTE programs that we have here in Florida. And then, of course, in post-secondary, we have technical colleges that are offering CTE. We have Florida College System institutions or state colleges that are offering CTE up through associate's degree. And then, of course, apprenticeships, which are a part of career and technical education. And those are business-led learn as you earn type programs. And of course, these programs can articulate back and forth to each other to advance an individual's career pathway. And of course, they lead to successful careers and more lifelong learning. So how is it that at a systems level, these programs are funded? We have two main categories. On the right side, we see funding that goes directly to students for career and technical education programs, and then funding that goes to the institution, districts and colleges here in Florida. We have federal sources of money, such as Perkins, which is roughly about $80 million here in Florida. We have WIOA funds, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, that flow to integrated education and training programs where individuals can receive adult education at the same time as career and technical education. We have state sources of funding, such as those based on student enrollment. Those are formula-based fundings. More students, more funding. We have performance-based funding, where it is tied to the student outcomes, such as placement and program completion. And then we have strategic initiative funding, such as for apprenticeships in nursing, as well as equipment capitalization incentive grants here in Florida. And of course, there are local sources of funds, such as tuition and fees, grants, local appropriations, and local foundations and business partnerships. That's to the institution. To the student, again, there we have these federal, state, and local funds that braid together. We have grants and scholarships, workforce, work study, and loans. We have open door grant programs, which offer scholarships to students in short-term credentialing programs. We have Florida Bright Futures, such as the Gold Seal CAPE Scholarship and the Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship, which supports students going on to CTE pathways. And of course, we have local forms of scholarships operated by philanthropy, businesses, and institutions. Yes, CTE is broad. It's not just, shop class anymore. It's very much advanced programs that are high wage, such as health sciences and computer sciences, information technology, engineering, finance, government, public administration, hospitality, human services, education, training, energy, and I won't list them all, but you get an idea that CTE is to support career readiness for all occupations here in Florida. And on the next two slides, we have some snapshots of what enrollment looks like in Florida for CTE. And the summary is that it's up. Things are looking good. We have strong job security working in career and technical education. More and more students are enrolling, and we're even outpacing Florida as a state, since Florida's a growing population. A CTE enrollment is outpacing even our growth here in the state. This is at the secondary level. And on the next slide, we'll see a post-secondary where We did have a dip with the pandemic across the board, but we have had very strong recovery and are exceeding our pre-pandemic levels for enrollment at the technical college level, at the Florida College System institution level, and for registered apprenticeships here in Florida. So things are looking good in terms of student engagement with career and technical education. So where do these programs come from? How are they birthed, and what is their life cycle here in Florida? So they start locally, and curriculum frameworks are kind of the charter document that is used to start and operate career and technical education programs here in Florida. Those are in state statute, and the citations in that first paragraph as well as rule here in Florida. And CTE curriculum frameworks start by a collaboration of local Florida educators and industry partners that submit a proposal to the Florida Department of Education. That curriculum framework is reviewed by FDOE content experts. Things that we look at are labor market information, the rigor of the standards, non-duplication, and a number of other factors to consider. Is this a good contribution to CTE here in Florida? And those programs are then reviewed on a triannual cycle. So every 3 years, we go back and bring together an advisory group to look at the standards and the structure of that particular program. And of course, some of our programs here in Florida are regulated, and we also work in collaboration with those regulatory bodies here in Florida. In addition, we are constantly monitoring the labor market and program performance at the institutional and down to the program level. And we're always looking for what should be brought onto the rosters as well as off the rosters for what we offer here for career readiness and career and technical education in Florida. And now we're looking, so that's kind of a system look at where do these programs come from? How are they operated? How are they funded? What is the nature of them? And now we're going to look at a couple hallmarks of quality for CTE programs. So the first hallmark relates to those that are leading these programs at the classroom level. So at the heart of high quality CTE are the people that deliver that CTE to students. It's, of course, Florida teachers and faculty. And so high quality instructors for CTE are, of course, industry experts. They have a deep expertise and credentialing related to their area of expertise. But then also they have received the support necessary to also be teaching experts, where they can deliver this content that they know in depth very effectively to our students here in Florida. And we have a number of ways that we support that, both at the state level and at the local level, to ensure that our industry experts are also educational experts and can ensure student development. So what is the student experience for a high quality CTE program? It is hands-on. All of us learn best by doing and not just listening. And it's work-based learning that are those highest quality opportunities to really experience and put to use these technical skills, which are the type of skills for a specific vocation. So we'll start on the right-hand side, where this is the highest level of work-based learning: internships, apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, on-the-job training, clinicals, practicums. Those are where students get opportunities to build that social capital, where they get to meet people in industry. They get off-site. They get to experience what it's like in the real world to be within these occupations, and they put to use these very specific skills for specific occupations. Further on down are some on-campus opportunities where it's not always possible for a student to get off campus to be able to experience a work-based learning opportunity like an internship, but they can still operate a business on campus like a school-based enterprise. They can volunteer through service learning opportunities. They can receive mentorship through a guided entrepreneurship experience. They can have industry and capstone type projects where business partnerships come to campus and give feedback to industry projects where the students are actually applying what they've learned in the classroom. And then to a greater extent every year as virtual and simulated work-based learning, where as virtual reality and AI continue to progress, that gets more and more integrated into CTE classrooms where students can practice before, particularly for dangerous type occupations, before actually implementing those on the job site. And then on the left-hand side of what we see on this slide are a number of different opportunities where the student is being exposed to a number of different occupations, number of different employers and industries, and they're able to gather and what it's like in a number of different occupations to make a more informed choice about where they see themselves in the future. And then they can build themselves up to some of these more advanced forms of work-based learning. Again, we're continuing on the theme of what do high quality career and technical education programs look like? It's about credit here for this slide. So prior to enrolling in a program, students can articulate credit into a program where students, based on credit by exam, attaining an industry recognized certification, dual enrollment, even military service, other forms of articulation, they can bring credit into that program to, again, better careers faster. Once they're in that program, there's a process of progressive credentialing where students can have exit points if they need to. Sometimes life happens and the individual is not able to fully complete the credential that they enrolled into. But if you offer things like college credit certificates, occupational completion points, or industry certifications that are embedded in larger programs, those individuals which, because life has happened, are not able to complete a program, still have something that they can bring to an employer and say, this is verification that I have a certain threshold of skills. And those have value for those students. So we want to make sure that those are, wherever possible, embedded into these larger programs where individuals have progressive credentialing. Then after that program, so they've brought credit in, they've received credentialing along the way, and then they're able to take that credit and again, they stack it, which I've mentioned earlier, which is being able to receive the recognition of previously already earned credit. For instance, if you complete a career certificate program here in Florida, there are statewide articulation agreements that then allow you to, for certain programs, articulate credit into an associate's of science program or associate of applied science. In addition, there are articulation agreements that then you can again stack that. Started with a career certificate, then an associate's, and then you can stack that to a bachelor's and beyond. The credit for what you've earned in the past is recognized. You don't have to start over, and you can build on that and again, better careers faster. So I am here for if there are more questions. We have a Q&A box, and I'll put my contact information into the chat for everyone. We also have getthereflorida.com, where you can learn about post-secondary CTE training programs here in Florida. For our secondary audience, as well as our adult education audience here, Zello is Florida's career planning and work-based learning coordination system. And you can visit zello.world/Florida to learn more about that. We have all of our CTE programs and apprenticeships that are going into the system connected to career assessments and student scholarships, being able to use Common App to apply to different institutions. You can manage work-based learning opportunities locally. You can build a resume, build a professional portfolio, a whole host of different tools, all the way down to kindergarten, actually, to again have better career outcomes faster. So thank you very much for your time. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Jackie Scrid from St. Petersburg College, who's going to give some examples of CT programs in action.
Thank you, Lee. Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm so excited to be representing Florida colleges, the community college system, and sharing a lot of what Lee shared and how we bring that to life. I'm Jackie Scrid. I'm the Vice President of Workforce Development and Corporate Partnerships at St. Petersburg College. And what that means is it's actually a newer role at the college. The president wanted to see workforce development as a priority for the institution. And with that, I oversee the non-degree corporate training, short-term training, revenue generating arm of the institution, but I also oversee corporate partnerships, which is a new space for us. And that's an exciting role. It's all encompassing all college. Talk a lot about economic development. We're working with our companies. We're listening to the talent needs of our community. And my team has a responsibility to bring this information and work closely with our degree and non-degree sides across the board to ensure that we are delivering on that and that our students are getting the best they can get to fill those jobs. So it's a unique space, I think, where we've gone across for the full college, and I'm excited to be a part of that. So go ahead, next slide, Deborah. Who is St. Petersburg College? We're the oldest community college in the state of Florida. We're often recognized as a pioneering institution for innovation. And I say that because we were known as the first to offer workforce-related bachelor's degrees, first to offer bachelor's, and the first to offer fully online programs. And that's something exciting. That's something that we use to really promote us for or inspire us to do new things and do new innovative things. We are a member of LEAP Tampa Bay, serving Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. That's the local college access network for our region. And we were the LCAN of the year by NCAN in 2021. We're very proud of that. And I want to give a shout out to all my SPC and LCAN colleagues and our partners here today. Here's a quick snapshot of our student body. In my bio, we said 37,000 students. We have shifted slightly. We have a little bit lower enrollment, around 34,000. That represents 44% minorities. Our average age has actually dropped a year over the last year, and we're now down to 26. We're seeing an increase in enrollment from our dual enrollment programs and our students coming out of high school. But you also see that our students are working. They have families. They attend we've got 66% working in school, and then another 74% that are attending part-time. But most of our students have some type of financial need. And I spotlight some of the programs because we do offer a lot. 60 programs that are online, 17 different bachelors, and we have a variety of different workforce programs that we can offer our community. Again, all in either AA or the workforce space. Next slide, please. So when it comes to student enrollment, what we find is that about 27% of our degree-seeking students are CTE, including those that are seeking AS degrees and certificates. 15% are seeking a bachelor's, and about 40% of our students are AA students looking to transfer onto a university. We serve nearly 2,000 individuals through short-term training programs, and that number keeps growing. At St. Petersburg College, we're focused on workforce education. I mentioned that with my role, but one of the foundational pillars of our strategic plan is to support economic mobility for our students, not just academic excellence and student completion. We are shifting the goalpost of student success to make that about helping students get a job at a self-sustaining wage. We want to ensure that our students are coming out of their program and are supported through getting a job and a good job. It's not just to have them complete. This is important because we find that over half our population is income constrained. They're barely making ends meet. We recognize this as not only our individuals who are in poverty, but also our ALICE individuals. Those are asset limited, income constrained, but working residents within our communities. That total number for Pinellas has reached 52%. And that's up 5% over the last 2 years. So this work for us is fundamentally important. Because of all of this, we are focused on pathway strategies for students to get into those jobs. And this includes offering the right training programs in areas where the jobs are. We mentioned that. Through our non-degree short-term certification programs, we've added new programs and modified existing ones. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Those have helped us drive some of these enrollments up. You can see up 89% just in our short-term training programs, but these are meeting the talent demands of our companies. And to help create awareness of these programs, we're working closely with our community and nonprofit partners to reach into communities and their client bases. This helps us build trust in those communities, and it helps us to share the message about the opportunities that lie ahead for them for shorter term programs that lead to better wages pretty quickly, where they can get a job. These are organizations like the Urban League, Homeless Empowerment Project, our Ex-Offender Reentry Coalition, Hispanic Outreach Council, AARP, among many others, Salvation Army. We've also built transfer pathways to help students who intend to transfer after getting an AA to get on a clearer and faster path to completion. You see some of the highlights here with Fuse, Direct Connect, and Ignite. Those are aligning our courses and our programs with universities like USF, UCF, and FAMU to ensure guaranteed entry not only into the school, but into their chosen program of study. That's a very big difference. So we've set up those agreements so that we can help our students start with SPC and then transfer onto the program of study into those universities. And we're working on ways to strengthen these pathways. Deborah mentioned that, there's a low percentage of students that actually go on to complete, but those students that go on are highly successful. So we're working on ways closer with those universities, especially with USF more locally, on how we can improve that transfer pathway for students. Meanwhile, we've created over 150 articulation agreements. These are separate from transfer programs. Those are programs that go between our non-degree and our degree programs within SPC, so that somebody can go in and get a credential and then articulate that and utilize that coursework for their degree at SPC. We've also established articulations between SPC and Pinellas County schools, as well as their career academies, and Pinellas Technical College, which operates under our school district. Just last year, we had over 700 students capitalize on that, saving them nearly $400,000 in tuition. So those articulations, that's auto credit, really, really helps students to springboard and accelerate their path through school. And we actually have now a new articulation system that helps students better navigate these options. And we're using Power BI to help us track the outcomes better. So I wanted to share a little bit more about the administrative parts of that to help us keep on track and help us communicate better with students. Next slide, please. And I mentioned our program innovations a moment ago and how they're supporting enrollment and jobs with good wages. I wanted to spotlight 3 that are connecting education and the workforce. Deborah mentioned, how are we connecting education and the workforce? And that whole CTE definition, that's kind of the big crux of it, right? We do so much. But I wanted to share one example. The first one, we're looking for better ways to get our students safely and successfully through our programs faster so they can get to work quicker. That was what Lee mentioned too. And one example is our Certified Clinical Medical Assistant program. This is actually something we offer through our corporate college, but we worked closely with our local employers, and these are some major healthcare systems that we brought together to determine a way to compress the program from 16 weeks to 12 weeks. We looked at competencies that students would be getting on the job and where we could reduce some of the content they received in class. Some of the things we looked at that they had already gotten or would have already gotten through their company would have been CPR. Some of it, we looked at their clinical training hours, how we could reduce that because they were getting that on the job, and then allowed us to compress it a little bit faster, get more people in the pipeline, and shorten that time to completion to the job for those companies. And what's interesting is, in this case, the students are hired first by the employer, and then they complete the training through our corporate training department. But the role has been a blessing for so many entry-level healthcare workers that have been wanting to get into the clinical space. And the CCMA really does give them a trajectory into the nursing area and different roles that they can move up the ladder pretty quickly. So while this particular one, the wages are not as high as we would want, that trajectory is pretty quick. So this was one that we've worked really closely with the companies to help accelerate. And this past year, we were recognized by the Association of Florida Colleges, the Workforce Adult and Continuing Education Commission, with an Exemplary Practice Award for this innovation. So we're pretty proud of that. Another one I want to spotlight is how we're building and adjusting our programs that are industry-led. We're listening to our industry partners better than before. We're leaning in on the competencies that they are seeking. We're bringing them together as a sector to determine a standard that will deliver baseline talent that they all need. That's not always easy, but we're seeing that they're coming together more now than ever because they are all feeling the pinch for talent, and they can't just, nobody can do it alone anymore. So we are seeing this happen. And one example we saw this with is our line worker program. We had Duke Energy, Powertown, some other subcontractors, Disney, the Florida Energy Workforce Consortium, and other industry players at the table developing the curriculum for this. We packaged a program that included technical content that was actually delivered by Duke. This was something they own, but they said, you know, everybody agreed, no, this is what we really think is what we need in terms of competencies when somebody's coming out of the program. We added in OSHA, we added in CDL, which was another piece that they wanted to see. We didn't offer CDL. So we brought in Pinellas Technical College to say, hey, can you offer CDL? So we packaged that. So they're going to SPC. They're also going to Pinellas Technical College, and we're delivering that full package as a partnership. And the result has been pretty profound. We're now delivering about 300 skilled trainees a year. And it's a strong pipeline feeder for such an important role for these companies and for our communities. We're experiencing about an 85% placement rate at about $60,000 to start. So this one's pretty fundamental. You go in at 16 weeks and, you know, 16 weeks later, you're making 60 grand. We're seeing the word has spread, and we have a pretty big wait list of about 250 people. But these are people we can transfer into different programs as well. So we've also driven diversity in the field. And, you know, I mentioned how we're working with community partners on outreach. This is one of those really good examples of how we're doing that, and which has driven a lot of diversity and predominantly white male oriented position. We're seeing more women, we're seeing more Hispanic and Black African American individuals seek out this as a job. So it's been fantastic all the way around. And a third example, we are leveraging that sector strategy that we developed for the line worker program to establish other programs. And when we really hone in on those foundational skill sets, we want those skill sets to be portable across. Lee mentioned that, you know, what are those progressive credentialing and stacking opportunities? How can we, you know, get them those fundamentals, reach the masses? We're now in the process of developing a semiconductor technician training program with the curriculum being developed by companies like Plasmatherm, Jabil, Honeywell. They're at the table writing this, and we're really looking at a way that we can look at something longer than the 2-week that's being offered by a community college outside of Phoenix, Arizona, that's supporting Intel, was developed by Intel, to something shorter that's being worked on with Valencia College to really get people to the job faster. So again, that's compressed, industry driven, and reaches the masses. And we're optimistic that we'll have similar results with this program that we do with line worker, as these companies are chomping at the bit to hire new people. So we're excited about that. Those were 3 examples. And I wanted to share with you, next slide, a last strategy of what we've done to transition our work with businesses. Now, I mentioned my role is new. I've said that twice now, or 3 times. But really what that means is the whole corporate partnership space and how we're strengthening our partnerships and what this really means for job placement. And, you know, this is part of more of the administrative infrastructure. So if any of you are on the line and you're administering a program or you're working in a program that you're just trying to even figure out the whole job placement space, I wanted to share with you how we're doing it at SPC. Part of this was started up with a Bank of America grant. We received $1 million to set up some positions. Two that we funded on our own as an institution, and two that the grant funded. And this was a role called business relationship manager. And they're the single point of contact. It's actually number 2 when we talk about corporate partnerships, that concierge-based service delivery model. They're the central point of contact for businesses at our organization. We're big, a complex organization. We've got a lot of people to serve, and we find that companies are working with multiple people within our organization. So we really wanted to give them that single source that would help them coordinate the relationship, respond on their behalf, and work within the institution to deliver to that company. But we're finding that that relationship takes a while to start up. In some cases, there's some cold calling, and some we've already had established relationships. But that's really resulted in us listening at deeper levels. It's resulted in us improving our communications and having a reciprocal relationships with companies, not being afraid to ask for things, not being afraid to ask even really kind of define more what it is that they're looking for, or the process in which we go about delivering on students. And so we've been able to tackle some of more challenges and barriers to placing students as a result of that, and really even finding out if it's a big organization, how do we break down those barriers of them getting them in a system, and feeding them over to the hiring manager and saying, hey, we have 5 people that have applied for this job, you know, how do you flag them, and going through that whole process. All of that's really resulted in over 1,600 placements and jobs and internships just last year. We've already surpassed that number this year. So we know that this role and that having that single point of contact is making a difference. And then I mentioned briefly when I talked about articulations that centralized alignment. We're looking at an institutional alliance with our sister institutions from around Tampa Bay, our Hillsborough Community College, Pasco Hernando State College of Florida, and our universities with USF and UT, Eckerd College, and really trying to figure out how we can work better together on program alignment, how we can break down some of those barriers for students when it comes to transfer. And then, you know, how do we connect them better again to the jobs together, and looking at systems like Handshake we all have and are using, how do we do that better together? So that's more to come. That's all new development. But I wanted to stress these things to you because, you know, you see some of the outcomes for yourself. We established 600 new partnerships just last year as a result. Total leveraged resources, again, this was last year, 170. I think we're all past the $500,000 mark now, just this year in 6 months. So again, very, very good investment in our administrative infrastructure to hone in on these corporate partnerships, because it is working. I don't know if we want to probably transition it. Do we have John on the line?
So thank you, Jackie. We don't have John. He was unfortunately unable to make it. So I do have his slide here to be made available to you all about a week after today, especially also with the recording. And so we'll make sure we get with John and get some of his remarks that he would have shared here with you all today, just to make sure that we still provide his opportunity to spotlight some of the work being done at Lorenzo Walker Technical College. So with that, though, we can move into Q&A. And I will say we have some really good questions that actually came in during registration. So I'll just kind of pose these out, and some might be more for Jackie, some might be more for Lee, but just feel free to answer as you wish. So first question we have here is, what is the role philanthropy can play in supporting K-12 students being ready for pathways in higher education?
I'll start with an answer, and then Jackie, please, if you have any ideas. Um, so that is a fantastic question, and a question that I think. So in Florida, I know that our districts work very closely with their ed foundations, their local district ed foundations, and I think that's a really strong model where districts work with their ed foundation. Their ed foundation coordinates a significant amount of work with business partners, in addition to the partnerships that are happening directly with between districts and businesses. And they open strategic doors to be able to start conversations about how to improve student outcomes, and can direct funds to very local strategic initiatives down to the classroom. And I think that's a very strong model. I'm sure it's not the only model operating here in Florida, but it is one that comes to mind. So if you represent a philanthropic organization, you're welcome to reach out to me. But I would also encourage you to reach out locally to your district and definitely your state college to be able to see what possibilities there are, and see what types of programs are available to in alignment with your strategic focus as a philanthropy. So that's the start of an answer. I would start those conversations locally, to see where your philanthropic dollars can best be used. And feel free to reach out to me too, and I can help put you in touch with people.
We've been involved in a number of different national conversations at SPC when it comes to some industry, whether it's energy or telecommunications. We are finding that a number of national or international philanthropists have been asking this question as well. And when we bring all these other colleges together, we've got some of the fundamentals, right? As a local institution, we've got equipment, we've got lab space, there's paid training. A lot of students aren't eligible for paid training through Pell, but fortunately we do have the Open Door grant, which has been really literally an open door for a lot of students to help offset the cost of tuition that many can't afford, that they might not have other funding for. So we want to thank the legislature, state legislature, for making that available as well. So those are several different areas. Instructors, any startup costs, as Lee mentioned, you'll learn more about that from a local level when you have those conversations with your partners. But those are predominantly what bubbles up the most, especially for starting up new programs and trying to accelerate the time to market for the talent.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Jackie, this is more a question for you. We have a question here wanting to know if you could elaborate a little bit more on the talent placement and Bank of America partnership. How did you establish that relationship? Was it a credential or a certificate that students needed to have?
No, actually, it's funny. It's actually a good question, great question to ask after the philanthropic question, because it was a conversation that we had with Bank of America. And the question was, what are we missing? And I had, in my background, and I used to operate grants and do a lot of startup on workforce development programs. And I also worked for the Workforce Board. So I had a background in implementation, and there are some investments, many investments, good investments in outreach and the pathways. You see a lot of time and effort being spent on all of that. And I shared a ton of examples with you. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. But what's been missing has been that back end, that job placement piece. We get students in, we get them through the path, we get them completed, and then what? And so that was sort of the conversation that we had. And it was, what can we do to focus on this postgraduate success space? And so that's where they actually wanted to make the investment at a national level. And it is proving to be an exceptional model for job placement. But it really stemmed from developing closer relationships with business. So our plan just called for that role, also some data tracking and identifying a central point of tracking. And that's actually been probably our biggest hurdle. Not so much the developing relationships, that takes time, but it's that single source of tracking, the real-time tracking. We know that FETPIP's 2 years, 2 years lagging for our reporting, and we need something more real-time. And so we're prepping for that. We're really setting the stages in motion to be able to deliver on that. And we're doing a lot of onesie, twosie, reaching out within our partners in our degree space, in our student affairs and a career readiness team. We've got teams that are working on this to identify the job placements. Internships is a lot easier because they go through an internship course. It's once they get a job. And so we've done it pretty well. We're looking at models like our healthcare and our allied health that are exceptional at capturing that information and how we can replicate that in some other areas around the college. But that's where that talent placement really has been born and grown from that.
Thank you. Clearly, you can see that this type of work is obviously not done in a vacuum, right? To be successful, you have to have the good, strong partnerships. So thank you for sharing that. Another question here is, what resources or toolkits are available to describe how credentials stack to meet wage and labor demand?
I can direct you to our statewide CTE articulation agreements. That's one good source. And I'll put that in the chat. I have to finish my chat. I was typing to Kim. Be able to do that. And it is a very nice inventory of the articulation agreements available here in CTE that are statewide. And then in addition to that, there are a number that are operated locally between districts and colleges, technical colleges, and state colleges. That's a sort of an answer. If there are more specific questions or ways that I can be helpful, please let me know.
Great, thank you. And I'll be pointing our reference to, I'm sure the Get There website also probably has some information around that as well, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yeah, I'll throw that in the chat too.
Okay, perfect. So this is a bit of a broad question. How do you get corporate sponsorships in a rural community where there's no major business or industry?
So that model that I just shared, I mean, Pinellas County is 95% small business. So part of it was starting with our advisory boards. One thing that we noticed a difference with, and you may already do this, but because we're a big institution, we weren't really going out to the companies and spending more time at the companies to really understand what their company looked like, meeting with their employees, learning more about them. It was sort of these, conversations that we had in groups. And what we uncovered from a lot of those meetings at their sites made a huge difference in how we understood what their true needs were, and having a deeper conversation. So that might be a recommendation and suggestion if you have the time and effort and team to be able to do that. But again, it doesn't take, people are people. It's actually harder with a big business because there's so many more roadblocks in the way of systems and HR, staffing, and who's hiring and who, all of those parts and pieces. When you get a small company, you can really truly develop a really strong relationship. And it only takes that little bit. You talk about strength of ties. If you study strength of ties, you can have a relationship that doesn't need to be somebody that's your best friend to really go a long way. And so spending the time to kind of know somebody, really worth it.
Thank you,
Yeah, I'll
Jeff.
build off that a little bit. So yeah, in entry level, there's a progression of how involved businesses can be with CTE programs. Entry level is showing up once a year for a career fair or some other type of one-time event. That's very low commitment for business. A little higher commitment would be getting involved in advisory boards that might meet 3 to 4 times a year, something like that. A little bit more involved would be bringing students to a work site for job shadowing or a business tour. And then more involved would be some of, funding, involving funding and equipment and offering work-based learning opportunities. So I think there's lots of entry points for businesses to get involved in different types of programs. And you might have different strategies for different educational levels. So you might want to raise awareness for middle school and high school students through offering these very short-term, getting involved in a capstone project or a local career fair or different sponsorship events. And then as you progress, offering more in-depth internships and other more involved on the job training opportunities. So lots of different ways of getting involved. It's totally okay to start small if you're a business listening, and start to meet not only the individuals that are helping lead these CTE programs, but then also the students to see the promise and the skill, and that these are bright individuals that are your next great hire.
Wonderful, thank you. So I think that's it for the time that we have today, but I know we'll have Lee and Jackie, and then of course John's contact information. It's been put in the chat, but it'll also be included in the materials from this webinar. So please feel free to reach out to them if you have more questions and want to learn more. So really quickly before we wrap up, if this webinar interested you and now you're finding yourself wanting more information, I do also encourage you to also check out these resources from FCAN, in addition to contacting Lee, Jackie, John, and looking at the Get There website that Lee mentioned earlier. In August of last year, FCAN released a brief on understanding career and technical education to provide answers to some questions that we addressed here in today's webinar, such as how do CTE programs work at the post-secondary level? How is Florida working to improve CTE? And then it also provides examples of CTE to degree pathway programs. And then earlier this month, if you haven't seen it yet, we also published a student and parent version of this document, highlighting questions that these individuals may typically ask when deciding on options for education after high school. There's also a chart available listing the different CTE credentials available in Florida, a description of each credential, and details on potential financial aid sources for students. And lastly, most exciting, this document is available in both English and Spanish. And one final item before we go, if you haven't seen already, we've also opened registration for our annual Talent Strong Florida Summit happening May 8th through 10th at the Hilton Orlando. Early bird rates end on March 31st. And we invite you to recognize a colleague, school, or community organization for our annual Innovator Awards, which will be awarded at the summit. Nominations are now open for the College Ready Florida Innovator, Workforce Education Innovator, and FAFSA Trailblazer. How has your nominee worked to implement a college and career culture, increased access to workforce education, or prepared students to complete the FAFSA? Feel free to submit your nomination by March 1st, and the link to do so can be found on our website and social media platforms. That is it for today. As mentioned, we will be sharing the recording and the slides from this webinar about a week from today. And that is it for all. Thanks for joining us today. Have a nice afternoon.